And is Ghana's tax structure, or let's say system, just favoring or not favorable to local businesses, industries, and manufacturing firms? Or is just an issue of most of them are just not being that innovative in the midst of a competitive environment? Or we are just not helping local firms and manufacturing companies when it comes to policies and programs? Well, business magnate and executive chairman of Engineers and Planners, Ibrahim Ahmad, has always been on record to have complained about the system doesn't support local businesses compared to what we do for the multinationals, and that we should support more indigenous firms in these times. So is it about the fact that how we play things, especially when it comes to concerns being expressed, especially by Accra Brewery Limited, which is looking at the option of shutting down because of the tax issues in the system? On PM Express Business Edition, we're looking at the state of industries, manufacturing firms in this country, and Ghana's tax system. System set up just to suffocate manufacturing firms, or they're just not being innovative. Well, I'll be engaging the Chief Executive Association of Ghana Industries, Seth Twum Akwaboah, as we look at the business barometer that they also do, the tax structure, and how are industries doing as we speak right now? Is it all that good, or they just turn themselves into packaging outlet in the country? This is PM Express Business Edition, and don't forget that it's brought to you by Let's Look at Admissions. St. Andrews Groups of Companies School College for the 2026-2027. Admission is open for SSS 1, 2, and 3 in our campuses. That is the St. Richard's SAHS at St. Fosu. That is the St. Luke's HAS and Mankesim. That is the St. Benedict SHS. That is Tishireso. And the Lighthouse HAS. That is New Dubiase. And Mount Herborn College. That is Dunkwa. Often and the Golden Gate SSS. And also Shama, Takrady, and G. St. Andrews SHS, that is Teshi, Accra here. All our schools are part of government-free SHS program. The GSH graduate should choose any of our schools in the portal. That is, all our schools operate boarding systems. We do all the SHS programs as well. Call us on 0244 6969 and 020 7891 0004. And this is PM Express Business Edition, and trying to engage Chief Executive Association of Ghana Industries, Seth Twum Akwaboah. Before we bring him in for our discussion, let's play up some of this data that my production crew has put together in terms of some of the issues, and look at the corporate income tax bracket, narration chargeable income of residents and non-residents, 25%. The capital gains tax gains from realized from chargeable assets was also 25%. Withholding tax of corporate and local transactions, that is tax withheld on payments of goods, work, services, 3 to 7.5% as well. And growth and sustainability levy on profit before tax across most sectors, 1 to 5. Why profit before tax? And you've seen all the value-added tax as well. And just to bring to light the tax bracket that most of these industries and manufacturing firms are going through right now as we speak. The excise duty as well, the tax on specific goods, alcohol, tobacco, petroleum, varies by the product, communication service tax as well. The origin, you've seen the excise duty, and that is something that I know most industries will be looking into, the customs, excise duties, and all those things, the peppers, chargeable breweries, or the substitute imported inputs with locally grown products, and mechanism, lower excise rate for higher local raw materials, and the graduated concessions as well. The review period, you're looking at 14 years. Verification period, using the excise stamp to track finished products and volume. This is some area where I know most of the industries are really worried about that, how it's been implemented as well. And look at something like malt, the tax on it. Beer and stouts, 47%, and the new rate is 47.5%. And you look at the stout as well. So if you source your raw materials locally, that's the tax bracket. And if you decide to also import, this is what you are paying. Now, the research has shown us that consumption of beer is going down. So why do you place all these taxes on this product as well? Look at it over there. So brew firms claiming of a high local content. You're seeing those incentives there. And you look at the H1 2026 excise revenue, it fell actually. Government has not quantified the shortfall linked to the false local content claims, actually. Interesting debate, yeah. So the government is claiming that it's been abused, and all those things are argument being put forward by government, and also the fact that, so these are some of the issues that we want to get some deeper analysis of this. I'm indeed privileged to have the Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries, Seth Twum Akwaboah, a friend of the business, I should say, of course, in terms of the whole Association of Ghana Industries, and the support even has been given us, and also being there to engage in when all issues about manufacturing industries in Ghana. Uncle Seth, how are you doing? And I really appreciate your time. I know it's a very difficult and challenging time, but also don't forget I'll be looking at the AGI business barometer as well. Interesting analysis there, but how are industries doing now?
Well, thank you, George, for having me this evening. And I think it's a question you always ask anytime I come here. How are industries doing? Yeah. And it's always a difficult question to answer because we could see improvement in the macroeconomic environment, so ideally industry should be growing. But if you look at the structure of the Ghanaian economy over the years, you could see that there hasn't been any change, significant change in the structure. Industry's contribution to GDP has almost revolved around a certain, in the 20s, around 25% and all that. And then when you talk industry, sometimes you can also break it further down to manufacturing, electricity, mining, oil and gas, and so on and so forth. So mining, not too bad. Electricity is based on consumption, but they add to the calculation of the contribution. So normally we emphasize a lot more manufacturing because that is where a lot of job is created. And in terms of manufacturing, the growth trend hasn't changed much because it's a difficult area and it's also a very critical area for development. So I think that generally speaking, because there is some improvement in the last year or so concerning the macroeconomic environment, people are more optimistic in growing the industry. But if you ask me how they're doing, I think the challenges are still there.
I asked the question, and let me be biased here, the manufacturing space. And maybe that's where maybe later you go ahead and explain to us in terms of the structure of your membership, in terms of the large scale, the medium size, and the small scale. Let's look at the manufacturing space where significant portion of that are owned by indigents, even though your members cast. But let's be heavy on the manufacturing sector, because I asked this question because most of them that I'm engaging at the personal level, they are not telling me a good story. And I know your president himself is in the manufacturing space, and times when I had the opportunity to engage him, the picture is very challenging. He talked about how even one of his factories at the Spinters or even Tema was having issues with water. In fact, I know whether the things have been resolved now. So let's look at the manufacturing space and how are they doing? Because if I engage people at the individual level, the story is the value is the same, because when the economy is doing well, when the macro numbers are showing signs of improvement, the expectation is that it will trickle fast on the manufacturing sector. But at the individual level, the picture is not good. Maybe that is not fair, but you sit at the table where you have access to more documents and everything. That's why I always want to ask you that. As we speak half year, how's the situation like for the manufacturing space?
So normally when you are talking about this, you have to look at it in different perspectives, because the manufacturing space in general has always been a challenging area. And it's so because the factors that contribute to effective manufacturing and efficiency in manufacturing, we lack it. We don't have efficiency of it. The cost of electricity is always high. Access to finance is a challenge. Our market is so open, so influx of goods are always competing with us. Raw material cost is a challenge. The labor cost itself, the skill and the technology you need to really do effective manufacturing. I mean, what we have in Ghana is really not up to the utmost best, and therefore we are easily outcompeted in our own market. So over the years, manufacturing has been tough, but it holds the key to economic development. And therefore, even though it's challenging, we encourage those who are into it and we encourage government to give incentive for people to actually do a lot more manufacturing. Because if you do it and you are processing your own raw materials through the agro-business arrangement, then you are actually developing your economy on a more sustainable basis. So the challenges have always been there, and I think we expect it to improve better. Now, if you limit it to the past 6 months, as you say, then the question will be, has the situation drastically changed in the past 6 months? And I wouldn't say so. It's not that easy to have. There are a lot of rigidities. You know, when it comes to factors of production, they don't change overnight. Typical economic modeling and analysis. So it takes a while for some of the key factors to change. Even if market opportunity is created all of a sudden for you, you may not be able to meet it because you need to actually improve your factors, machinery, the capex has to improve before you can take advantage of it. So normally, you don't see a drastic change in the manufacturing space. But what you normally see is when there's improvement in the macros, when there is confidence level, the confidence level goes up, then people begin to invest. And over time, you then see the numbers changing. But within 6 months, it's very difficult to change.
Or even if I look at half year. So I get them, and I've engaged some people, maybe business, who have said that despite the macro situation improving, the manufacturing space is still yet to feel the full impact of the macro situation turning around. You know, inflation is coming down, but still the cost of doing businesses, and I'll come to your barometer, is high. So that's what I'm saying. At the individual level, they're telling me that we still have a high cost of doing business. We have manufacturing firms that I won't mention their name, said that they are still struggling to get access to long-term funding. So am I right to make that unintelligent guess that despite the numbers improving, the manufacturing space is still struggling?
It's really an intelligent guess. There's nothing unintelligent about it. And you got it right. You are spot on. In terms of analysis of the economy and the manufacturing sector, it's exactly what you've said, that there are still challenges in the factors that contribute to effective manufacturing. One of it is what you've mentioned. If you look at electricity costs, for example, the cost of it, if you compare to other countries, other competing countries. In China, for example, you could get electricity at the cost of 4 cents, 5 cents per kilowatt hour. Ghana, we are doing 15, 17 cents. So how can you compete? And if you are a highly consuming energy company, and you are 30% of your cost of production is coming from energy, the steel industry, the cement industry, then you have a challenge when tariff levels are at this level. Now, access to cost, access to finance, especially medium to long term, is a big challenge. Cost of finance has also been a challenge. We were borrowing at 25%, 30%. Now, today it's come down, which is good. But the question is, when it has come down, where is the funds going? And the analysis will show that indeed the portfolio of financial institutions, resources that are being deployed to the private sector, a lot of it is going more to the services and trading, not so much manufacturing.
Short-term
because it is short-term in nature. And also manufacturing and SMEs operating in the manufacturing sector, they are considered to be relatively higher risk area. So banks are a bit slow in lending to them. So even though we have seen improvement, it will take a little while. That's what I'm saying, that the challenges are there. So a drastic change in the manufacturing numbers, we cannot expect it immediately. We would wish that once we've seen macroeconomic stability, then significantly there's a change and everybody is happy. We are employing more people, we are expanding, we are producing more of the products here. But that is not what is happening. It will take a little while. But I think the starting point is that we were in a situation where the economic crisis hit us. It hit us so badly, confidence level was so low, and therefore, as we are improving the confidence level, there's a bit of certainty, the macros stays well, then people would then begin to invest. The banks themselves will say, let me look more closely to the manufacturing sector because there's stability. If I lend, I'm sure that within a certain period of horizon, I'm quite clear that I will get my money's back when I lend. So then that's where you gradually grow the sector as we expect.
And Mr. Akwaboah, I'll be doing more deeper analysis again into your business barometer report that you actually launched today. But I want to move quickly into another aspect before I come to that one. At the Association of Ghana Industries level, and what do you make of this news by Accra Brewery Limited? And I believe it might be your member, that there were reports that there is a likelihood that if things that doesn't improve that much, they could look at the option of scaling down and shutting down based on this whole excise duty. Has this thing come up to a station of Ghana Industries level?
Yes, it has. It has come to our notice, and indeed they've petitioned us, and we are equally concerned because ABL is one of our key members, and it's not only ABL. I think there are other manufacturers in the game, and we are therefore very concerned. And we are concerned not just because we are dealing with Akrabri. We are dealing with the whole industry and the sector. And if you look at it, the whole objective of the sliding scale model of taxing the breweries was basically to promote the use of local materials. So if you look at the structure, it is structured in a way that the more of the local raw materials you use, the lesser your tax rate. So those who use less than 50% in their production of their products, they were paying a tax of 47.5%.
Yeah, as we showed them in the...
Yes. And then those who use between 50 to 70%. So if you take any brewery or any alcoholic beverage product, and the component of the raw materials to the cost is about 50 to 70%, it means you're using more local raw materials. In that case, you are paying 32.5%. And those who use less than, more than 70%, then you pay only 10%. So the more of the local raw materials you use, the less of the tax you pay, which was really an incentive. And then if you compare that to the imported ones were paying 47.5%, which is the same level as those using below 50% of raw materials. So that has been the structure. Now, generally speaking, you could see that even the numbers I mentioned are quite high. Yeah. You're paying as much as...
in a very competitive environment,
that they are quite high. Because it's seen that it is not a goods of necessity.
Okay.
It is a luxury product because you can live without it. Yeah. So if, George, in the evenings, you decide not to take beer and you want to take water, you can still live. Yeah. And therefore, government feels that if you want to generate more money, then let me tax some of the products that are less of a critical nature for our survival. So it's understandable in everywhere in the world. That is how it is structured. So we can understand it. But I think the model that government brought about, which is the sliding scale, and again, ADI influenced that a lot. We thought that was a beautiful model. And that has encouraged these companies to go into local value chain development and are actually using local materials to produce. It will surprise you to know that the beer we drink, we use cassava. They use sorghum, they use maize, all kinds of products.
Sourced locally.
Sourced locally. So the more of it you use, the more you are deepening the value chains. The small enterprises, the farmers that are producing these products, they are very important in the chain. So anytime you tweak it, then you are creating a bit of imbalance and uncertainty. Disruptions in the whole chain. Now, what has happened is that there's a change in the structure. The structure is, as I mentioned, up to 50%, you pay 45.5%, 47.5%. Between the 50 and 70, we're paying 32.5%. Now it's being increased to 40%. And then above 70, it's also being increased from 10% to 25%. So practically what it means is that for those in the second bracket, and that's where the bulk of them are, they're actually going to pay 7.5% more than they were paying. And those in the over 70% bracket, they're paying 15%
And I think
more.
our producers who show that band of taxation when it comes to the consumption, it will help us a lot in terms of, not the barometer, but back again to the tax structure in terms of those who are consuming the local bit and what they will pay. But before they even bring up that one, maybe you'll still be, because you're trying to explain that.
Yeah, so this is what has happened. So there's been increment in the two brackets, the last two brackets. I think where they have a challenge is that when there's increment in the local producers level.
And these are manufacturing firms that are sourcing locally.
Locally, yes. Yeah. There is no such increment in the imported finished goods. So we left the imported finished goods as 47.5 without touching it. Whereas we have increased those that are sourcing locally. So then the bias is actually towards local manufacturers. And that is where they have a challenge. That, first of all, increasing the tariff level that way will affect consumption. And then there's also no period of engagement to really analyze to see what they can do and the effect and all that.
Mr. Akwaboah, I don't want to tell me whether what we've posted on the platform is accurate or
yes,
is still...
Yes. So this is accurate.
Yeah.
So if you look at the beer and stouts within the middle, you see that it's for those consuming raw materials of less than 50%, they were paying 47.5%. Currently, it's the same. So you look at the old rate and the new rate, and it remains same. So the change there is 0. Now, if you look at the second one, which is 50 to 70% raw material consumption, it was 32.5. Now it's gone to 40%.
That's huge.
So it's 7.5% change. Now, if you the last one, I'm sure you can show it. The last one, you see that those consuming raw materials of above 70%, their old rate was 10%. Now it's gone to 25%.
But where was AGI and all these things? I mean, educate, because, I mean, these are, and my producers will go back, I mean, these are, listen, in an environment where most of these firms, and this afternoon I was listening to a program on BBC and they were trying to focus more on the Diageo group and how they were complaining about how alcohol consumption itself globally is struggling and they are not getting new drinkers and all. So I'm just saying that beer, they are even struggling for those who are producing these kind of products. So where was AGI when all these things were going on? I mean, forgive my ignorance.
Well, I mean, these are discussions you can always have.
Yeah.
And
sorry, you're making a point so that you can still go ahead. Sorry.
So maybe I'll make my last point and we come back to your question. The last point is that we are very pro-Ghanaian industry. We are pro-local manufacturing. We are pro-local content. And therefore, if there's any change, we want to see the change favoring local producers. But the situation we have now is rather favoring importers of finished products. Because we have not changed the tax rate. Yes, we have not changed the tax rate for the imported finished products. Yet, the tax rate for the locally produced ones has gone up. So I think that is where the challenge has been. If the same rate has been increased by the local producers is slapped on the foreign imported ones, then one would say, okay, it's revenue generation concept or model. So government wants to generate more revenue. But in doing so, they are bringing fairness between the locally produced ones and then the imported ones. But I don't think this is what we are experiencing here. The question of where was AGI in all this, I think that we always engage government, but we must also admit that sometimes new taxes come up without extensive engagement. And that is where, when it comes, then we also raise the red flags and say, can we engage further on this and see what can be done? So I think this is the situation we have in this particular case. There wasn't prior engagement, so we are drawing government attention to it. Sometimes policymakers will admit that maybe in their analysis, they ignored certain factors.
So have you engaged government on, and again, I get the understanding, again, educate me. Because when this story went up and when Joy Business broke this story there, someone was saying that, oh, the company itself is an internal thing. You know, if they are not doing their things well, why do they want to bring it to an external environment? But there are other companies in this space who are also facing the similar problem. They might not look at the option of closing up or just scaling down, but it's not just a specific ABL issue. And I'm putting it out now. You speak for everyone. So sorry for me being too specific on this issue here.
Yeah, you are spot on. Normally, when it comes to tax policies or general policies, you don't develop policies to target a particular company. And I don't think that was the intention of government, not at all. Here I'm speaking for government in that sense. Government wouldn't target ABL and say, we want you to suffer, so you close down. What will government gain out of it? I think that government probably was looking at these revenue handles and says, and they do that gymnastics. So if I put a bit of this here, a bit of that here, I can generate so much revenue and I balance my books. But in doing so, then others have to draw their attention that perhaps for this one, you should have used a different channel, calculated this way, slapped here and there. So I think that is what it is. It's not just for one particular
company. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to establish.
It's a sector
that is affecting most.
All those who are producing alcoholic beverages will be affected by this, especially those that are using the local materials and have the opportunity of using what we call the sliding scale model. So the sliding scale is a special tax regime to support local manufacturers using local materials. So I think that the intention of developing or introducing the sliding scale has been good. and we need to keep it, and we need to protect it because it has had a positive effect. The positive effect is that, indeed, the companies trying to take advantage of the tax reductions have developed the value chains, which is now cutting across the country, are picking materials everywhere. So I think that's what we need to look at, because when you try to take it out, then it has implications, and I think we should discourage. We should be discouraged from doing that.
They petitioned you as an industry. Have you engaged the finance ministry on this?
It's very recent. You know, this whole issue came up just, I think, latter part of last week or so. But as quickly as possible, today we were having a program we call the Asia Corporate Forum. We once in a while engage our ministers and interact on various. So we had actually planned this way back. And then this issue came up. So we gave the Accra Brewery the opportunity to present their case when we met with the government officials. So it is quite recent. We've had a petition. We are looking at it, and very soon we'll attend to it.
So are you going to engage the finance ministry on this issue?
Oh, sure. We'll engage the finance ministry. And the engagement more or less started today.
You started engaging the ministry on this issue?
We had a program today, and we invited the ministry. The ministry sent some technical officials to be with us, and presentations were made. So they understood the point. We need to further engage to see what can be done within this couple of days or weeks to resolve it.
Because it's an industry issue, I know just like in the court case, they will want to put a stay of execution for certain things to go on. Would you support calls for a possible, because the bill has not been assented yet, so for some stay of execution for discussions to go on as quickly as possible before any implementation takes off?
Oh, sure. I mean, the president hasn't assented to it yet. And, you know, the law process, it requires the president assent before it becomes a law, even though it's been passed by Parliament. So I think that's where we are. So between now and the time the president may decide to assent, there must be some engagement. And when we engage, perhaps we understand the point of view of the ministry. They will also understand our point of view, the industry perspective. Then on the basis of that, I'm sure we'll come to a compromise. And if at that point, President decides to either assent or ask for amendment, then it can be done. But that is what we will ask for. We will push for that. That let's have immediate engagement and see how we can resolve it.
Would this engagement push for a postponement or a freeze? Because I am passionate for all industry, but passionate for the local ones as well and how these things will head them. So that if they could delay the implementation or postpone, I mean, some factories or manufacturing firms are engaged, they're even pushing for, let's start beginning of next year and all the rest. And I know you always find yourself in a difficult position because you are talking for everyone. And so what will you be presenting when the minister calls you and your president, okay, you know something, let's sit over a bottle of water and not a beer and have a discussion on this? What will you be telling the finance minister on this one?
I think the immediate request will be, let's engage. Let's finish the engagement before any further action is taken. And fortunately, we have not had the president assent to it yet. And therefore, it hasn't become a law. It's been passed by Parliament. But the moment it becomes a law, then you are compelled to implement. In that case, you must go for special dispensation if you want to shift the implementation of a law. That is more challenging. So now that it hasn't been assented, let's discuss and then fast-track that discussion. And on the basis of the conclusions we draw in those discussions, I believe that the minister could do the needful in pushing president and saying, we have seen this, we have understood the industries, these are their concerns, we have addressed it this way, but we think that for the law, we would wait a little bit. So can you wait on the assent? I mean, I don't know how the legal implication that can be pushed. And I think that is what we will ask for. And then, even if president assents, its implementation, sometimes there are allies and all that.
It depends on what even the Commissioner General might even do as well.
Exactly. So then we can shift, we can ask for enough time for them to adjust to be able to meet this demand. But I think for now, we shouldn't even be talking about how it should happen post the law coming into it. But before it becomes even a law, let's engage and see what can be done.
Mr. Twum Akwaboah, do you get the sense, and again, some of my engagement that I've had are at the personal level, they are not scientific based, that the concern for most of these manufacturing firms that they feel that they are being suffocated with the tax structure. I mean, if you are telling me to source locally and I'm doing that, in other countries, they'll be getting a lot of reliefs for doing this. But is there that sense that the structure is not favoring your members who are sourcing locally, they're employing locally, compared to other firms who are just bringing goods from outside, and they are even smuggling in, they are counterfeiting your members' products and all the rest. And sometimes the argument is that the law is not fair for all these people in this space.
Yes, it is partly true, but I will not even limit it to only the law. You could see in the law some of the intentions of government, and the intentions are generally good. Typical one is this sliding scale that we are experiencing. Another one is zero VAT on textiles. There are a number of policies and laws that support internally manufactured products or local manufacturing products. So there are a number of them that support it. But even where the law is clear, the enforcement of it becomes a big challenge. So, for example, today in our business barometer presentation,
we'll come to that discussion.
But we talked about smuggling and under-invoicing that undermines local production. So the law may be clear and say, if you are bringing your goods from outside, you are importing goods, you have to go through these channels, you have to pay, your duty bands are this. So if you are importing this, maybe 20%, 25% because it's a finished product. If it's a raw material, maybe pay 5%. In that sense, the law favors local manufacturing by giving them 5% concession on their raw material importation. But what happens? What happens is that because we are unable to track some of the products that come in, there's serious under-invoicing going on. So they bring the goods in, they are not paying the right duties, because some of them, the price that they quote in the market, they are ridiculously low. And you realize it is just not possible if you are going through the normal process of manufacturing. And we give examples all the time.
Yeah.
You take examples like cables. Cables, the copper and then the plastics, they are all internationally traded commodities. So you can actually go to the net and find out what the international prices are. And therefore, if you are producing cables and it's in coils, okay, for a certain meter of cable, there's a certain minimum cost you must incur. That cost includes the copper cost, the insulation, the entire production, and then the shipment you do and come and pay the duties. When you put all this together, there's a certain minimum price that you should at least price the product. If you charge or price anything below that, there's something wrong. And we are experiencing that. So either the standard is compromised, so we are not meeting the standards and we are unable to enforce, we are unable to see, and therefore we bring the goods in at a cheaper cost, and therefore you are selling at a lower price and you are getting all the market share. So I'm saying that I agree, we need to look at the laws and all that, but even when we have made the laws to favor industry, to what extent are we able to enforce it such that we protect local industry? And that for me is a major, major challenge. So, and as for incentive for industries, there's a lot more that can be done because even market protection alone, and market protection, we are not asking for a ban, okay? We are asking that if indeed you have local capacity to produce some of the goods, let's make sure we consume it. And examples of it exist. If you take flour, for example, we have
Irani
installed
brothers,
capacity.
are they still there?
Oh, they are all still there.
I remember when I was a kid.
Yeah. You have installed capacity of about 800 metric tons.
Irani
Yes.
brothers, I forgot.
Irani brothers, they are
the flour that they are white bags with those,
they are still there. But you see, some of them are producing below 40% capacity. So they have a lot more capacity to produce more to the market. Suddenly you will see an influx coming in. You wonder how they came in, prices are low, and then they flood the market, you can't survive. And that's what's happening. So we are very concerned about some of those products. Diapers is a typical example. The installed capacity is about, the total demand in Ghana is about 1 billion or so pieces per year. The installed capacity is about 3 billion. So it means that the local manufacturers of this, they must necessarily export to stay in business.
Oh.
So we have excess capacity in some of the products. Sometimes when they talk that, AGR people, you're only complaining, you don't even have the capacity if you allow you to produce. But it's not so. We are not doing the deep dive into the products that we have adequate capacity. Those we have, we should protect the market such that we actually produce to fill the market and then export. That is where we make industry survive and grow. But unfortunately, you see this same product coming in not meeting the quality standards, not paying the right duties, and the invoicing, misdescription, all kinds of things are going on. And for that reason, they come in cheaper and local companies cannot compete. So I think that the laws are good. Let's look for them. Let's get the right incentives in law. But when we have done it, let's enforce it.
Mr. Akwaboah, how do you respond to those who also argue that most of Ghanaian industries and manufacturing firms are not being that innovative and responding to the global competition market, and so rather than always crying for protectionism and all that? Because if you are innovative, you will know that, see, when you produce on this market, you're still competing with a good that is coming from China that has had rebates and all the rest. And maybe industries and manufacturing firms complain too much. They are not being that innovative.
It's not about not being innovative. Some of the machines we use here, we imported from the very countries you are mentioning. So the technologies, sometimes we're able to match them in technology. There are these same Chinese people who are also here and are producing here, and then they complain. So the technology-wise, what is innovation you are talking about? We have similar innovation. Of course, at the SME level, I know capacities are weak, so I can understand. But in terms of the relatively well and that bigger companies, we're able to match the capacity. That's why we're also able to match their product quality. You can't tell me that some of the products we are producing in Ghana are not of better quality than some of those who are imported.
I still like my Pepsodent, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
when I even travel, I still have some in my luggage.
High quality. Some of our companies have ISO certification. It means that their products can be sold anywhere in the world. So the quality is not bad at all. Technology-wise, we are not that bad. Of course, we need more. Let me take my words carefully, because we are not saying that we have reached an advanced level, and it's for limited products. For those that we have adequate capacity, we have the right technologies. The problem is the scaling. If you are not producing to a certain level of volumes, you don't become that competitive, because cost per unit is high because of the challenges we have in the system. So it's not the question of they complaining. It is the reality on the ground. Now, if you really want to support manufacturing, then some of the factors that are contributing to lower productivity levels, we need to resolve it. Some of the factors that are not making us upscale and expand and enjoy economies of scale, we need to resolve it. So when they talk about these things, it's not just a question of complaining. And then also, finally, they're also talking of fairness in the market. Sometimes you use the word protection. You have to use it carefully, because it's not so much a question of protection.
The WTO rules.
We are not asking you to ban the products. AG has never asked for any banning. We believe in the liberalized economy. We believe in the free market system. But we believe in the fairness of things. Everywhere in the world. You see what Uncle Trump is doing in the US.
I mean, Chinese are doing it for their market.
Yes, everybody does it.
Every bigger economy
they all do it.
Finding a way to protect their local industry.
Exactly.
Do you think that in our case, government can do more?
Oh, yes,
in terms of not protection, but
for me, it's the enforcement.
Yeah,
it's the enforcement of the very law that we have agreed. If we say that if you are bringing this particular product, your tariff bands falls within this, and therefore you must pay. Everybody who brings that finished product must go through the process, do the right declarations, pay the right amount, and then everybody is fine. When you do that and you're able to compete me out, that is fair. And that is what AGI is asking for. And of course, there are certain areas that, because we have challenges in our own system, we are unable to compete because we are not producing at a very large scale. That's where we need other incentives, like financial incentives, push them, have them, give them a medium to long-term funding at a more competitive interest rate. If it's raw material, how can we help source it? And how can we create a bigger market, and so on and so forth. So if you do that, then it is helping the ecosystem to improve their production capacity and then compete fairly in the market.
I know you do this thing that, and I'll come back to the 24-hour economy program as well, and also look at the past situation, which I know you would dovetail into your business barometer that you do, that you engage in. And I know you'll be calling for some graphs on the screen to talk to it as well. I mean, tell us more on this AGI business barometer, and what are your members saying right now when it comes to the state of the economy and their challenges and their top issues as we speak right now. And I know you'll call for some data on our screen to actually try and speak to those issues here.
Yeah. So the business barometer basically measures the confidence. It's a perception survey of our businesses. But it's a very interesting survey because if you monitor and you follow all these years, we've been doing this since 2013, so more than 10, 13 years ago. So if you look at it, it measures the confidence level of the business people about the business.
The graphs are on the screen if you just want to speak to the
yes. So we always look at basic factors and then we ask them very simple questions. How do you see the business environment? And if you feel it's good, what do you expect in the next quarter? How do you compare the current environment to the previous quarters? So we are always looking at a certain horizon before, now, and after. And it gives you a certain picture. Now, when you do the analysis, it will tell you the level of confidence. We have a mathematical model, which is a software and it's international, that we use in calculating the confidence level. There's a particular dot on the map. And the map, the position of the dot will indicate whether the confidence level is going up or is coming down. So if you get the graph, maybe if you can slow down.
The graph, so you have to move to another
see that graph?
Page. There's supposed to be a graph. No.
Yes, so that graph will show that the confidence level, yes, this one. You could see we've been tracking this for so many years, and it's in the, I think, quarter 3 of 2013 up to today. Every point or dot on the graph you see is a quarter. Now, every quarter, we try to measure what is the confidence level. We've been doing this consistently. Now, you see a baseline, you see a red line on the 100. We call it the baseline. Any point above the baseline means the confidence level is reasonably good. It's not 100%, it's just a baseline, and it's based on a certain calculation that you come to the baseline. Any point below it, it means confidence level is relatively low. Now, if you look at it, a lot of the dots are below the baseline. It means that a lot of the times there are issues with the business environment. We had an outlier way back in 2014 when the cedi was depreciating so fast and we could not even predict what was going to be happening the next quarter.
Dancing Palago.
Yes. So that one was an outlier. Otherwise, it's always revolving around the baseline, some are below, some above. The interesting thing to note is that for the past 4 quarters or so, you could see that the points are all above the baseline. It means that the confidence level today is relatively good. And I think it's based on the fact that the macroeconomic environment has been quite stabilized. cedi is not depreciating that fast. Exchange rate is good. Interest rate is coming down. The environment is becoming more predictable. It has to do a lot with the predictability of the business.
The previous quarter, it was up. The now quarter,
it's dropped a bit.
It's dropped a bit.
It's dropped a bit.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting if you analyze
what has caused that drop?
No, it's largely...
When, again, the macro numbers, again, you may debate wherever you stand, but if you look at the baseline for the macro numbers, they are improving.
Yes.
We should expect things to spike, but it's come down.
No, so you could also tell that during this last quarter and the last quarter, what has happened is the uncertainty regarding the global world. With the war in Iran, occasionally you see what is happening, fuel prices will go up. And when fuel prices goes up, it affects the entire chain of doing business. And then when there's that uncertainty, people are also reflecting, are we going to see the cedi depreciating? So when you are unable to predict so well, then the confidence level comes down. So that is where the challenge is. It's about what you feel about the current business environment and what you expect. If the uncertainty is there, it means the expectation will not be that high. And that's why it dropped a bit. But for me, what is most important is that they are all above the baseline. So it means for the past 4 or so quarters, confidence level has been good.
So when you did this survey, what were some of the top issues that came up for most chief executives and business owners and all the rest?
So normally we
but there was a previous graph. I know whether you also want to speak to that previous blocks.
So this one is actually the perception about whether the next quarter compared to the current quarter is going to be better or not. And you could see that the blue is actually indicating the current, and then the red is indicating the expectation. So what it's saying is that for those in quarter 1, if you're looking at the first graph, that refers to quarter one, second refers to quarter two. In quarter one, those who said the business environment as they were experiencing at the time was better than the previous quarter was 44%. 73% expected that the next quarter, which is quarter two, will be better. When you come to the graph two, you will see that those who said the previous quarter was better was 42%, and then 72% said the next quarter, which is quarter three, will be better. So you could see that the blues and then the reds, if you put it together, that's the better and the same. They are way outweighing the worst.
Okay.
So that is what accumulates into the graph that I showed.
Oh, okay.
And that's what gives you the point. So it's about a current and expectation, a combination of it, a mathematical model for calculating it, and then it gives you the point. And the point is that the confidence level is generally high. So I think as far as businesses are concerned, that is really a significant improvement, and we should acknowledge it. And it's largely because the macroeconomic environment is appearing to be more predictable. But for this world that we are experiencing, I think that generally speaking, people are okay. And if we continue like this, on this trajectory, then confidence level being high and being sustained, people will invest more. That is basically what it implies.
What about the top issues that came up for, and I don't know whether there's any graph to that effect, the top issues that came up for businesses when it comes to after the survey?
Okay, so normally what we do is that we ask them of their top challenges and we rank them, so many of them, but we actually limit it to 5 when we do the ranking.
So what were the top 5?
And the top 5, the first issue that was mentioned is cost of electricity. Cost of electricity because, yes, and I think that is, you could see that the high cost of electricity has become a challenge. You know, beginning of this year, there was a bit of an increment, 9-point-something increment. Then there was a bit of reduction in the second review. At the third review, there was another increment. If you put together, the net change is actually a higher tariff level. But what is even fueling that the more is the fact that a number of our big companies, we call them the bulk customers, they had special tariff arrangement with ECG. ECG suddenly changed their status. So beginning this year, they said you are no more qualified for the bulk customer status, so you become one of the normal tariff, consumers. For that reason, it increased their tariff levels by 48%. That has been very hitting. So I'm sure that is contributing significantly to the high cost
48%?
48% at one go.
And how are they staying in business? Coupled with
so
ABL's issues about all the manufacturing.
So it's not every manufacturing company that is part of the bulk customer.
Okay, sorry.
The bulk customer status, you have to apply through the Energy Commission to achieve that status. And you must consume a certain minimum levels of consumption before you qualify. So you go through a process. But the point is that those in that process, they are the large manufacturing plants. And for them, that's significant change. Now they are still contemplating, because we are still discussing with government, can we do something about it? Because they can't contain it. If they can't, they must necessarily translate that into higher prices by passing on to the consumers if they can. And you can imagine the implications. So it's creating a bit of uncertainty.
So that high cost could then force them to share the cost with consumers.
Naturally so, because
that
it cannot bear, and that could impact on the pricing and then the market share,
and the market share.
And so forth.
And the competition element comes in again. So
exactly.
Others who are enjoying rebates outside will outpace them. And then let's look at another bit about the raw materials. And let's look at still the top issues as well. High cost of the
raw material, and then the next
cost of raw materials.
Yes, the reason is simple. We import a lot of raw materials. So when you are importing so much, then any effect, especially at the international level, affects you. Remember the recent development we've had with the war. Cost of raw material, cost of importation in general has gone up because of the Hormuz and all the things that are happening in the Iran war. Generally, a lot of the shipment delayed, and when it happens, it translates into higher costs. So that has been another part. And then the other, number 3 was the multiplicity of taxes.
Taxation.
We've discussed that at length. There are a number of taxes that we think that we have to look at. I know government is trying to create incentives for industries, but there's a lot more that can be done. If you take the VAT rate, for example, in Nigeria, VAT rate is about 7.5%. In Ghana, it's 20%, so we are way higher. And then some of the taxes you mentioned, the growth, what do we call it? Apart from the corporate tax, which we have managed to get it to 25% for quite some time now. The other taxes that are also affecting businesses, the fruit juice today, now it's good to comment because when government has done something, you must comment government. Because that particular tax, AGI was so much against it that we shouldn't have had it in the first place. We're trying to encourage local producers of fruits, you know, to process. And then you are processing, we are bringing raw materials in, suddenly you impose a tax of 20%. And meanwhile, you are unable to police those that are being imported.
Let's look quickly. Access to credit. I struggle when good businesses that we see complain about access to credit. This is not even about access to long-term credit.
Yeah. So access to credit, it has a component of long-term and short-term and all that. But generally speaking, especially, you know, our members with them are largely manufacturers. Yeah. And I did say that even though there has been significant improvement in the cost of credits through reduced interest rate as a result of the macroeconomic stability, the portfolio of banks' finance that goes to manufacturing is still way lower compared to those that go to trading and service. So access to credit is still a challenge. Secondly, much as there's improvement, the structures haven't changed much. The banks do complain of impairment levels, especially when it comes to SME credit. SMEs need special kind of credit arrangement. Most of the banks offer short-term credit. Short-term credit at relatively high interest cost. And that cannot enable you to do major expansion, retooling, and setting up new factories. So most people, what they do is that they take short-term facilities to do long-term business. And that is very dangerous. So access to credit is still a major problem. I know the effort that has been made to establish the DBG, for example, but the question will be, they are doing well, but what is the level of capitalization of the DBG in lending to medium to long-term basis for SMEs? So it is still really a challenge.
And we know the parable rules. It's another, just some few seconds. That is also a problem for. When you go to Tema, and I know they complain, there are some industrial enclaves there, the petroleum enclaves, the crude oil enclaves, and the roads are terrible. I know Dr. Kweko for Bulk Distributors has been complaining that this is your hub, that is your engine of your economy. But roads there are terrible.
Recently, I spent hours from Tamari Refinery. I went to Central Oil. Between that side and then to the motorway, I spent about 3 hours. So you can imagine. So, and it's worsened in recent times when it rains so heavily. And I think anytime it rains, the situation worsens. We think that for a country where manufacturing is of critical interest, and we are trying to push the agenda of industrialization, there are certain critical roles that we should not toy with. We must do it, because that's where our taxes are coming from. In an enclave area, industrial enclave like Tema, you have no excuse to leave the road the state that we have it. You know the toll road.
It is the toll road is terrible.
And several other areas. So, and all the industrial areas, we think that the linkage, you know, between
North Industrial Area,
so many of them. So it's really an issue. And I think
Akwaboah, do I get the understanding that, again, if fuel prices should go up, and there's a likelihood as well, again, it will compound the situation of your members in terms of the cost of doing business?
Most likely, because anytime the fuel prices go up, it affects the entire chain of doing business. And what are the entire chain? You are bringing raw materials, you are using transportation. Some of the machines we use, they use fuel. So it's costing you more money. And once, even your workers, their movement in and out also cost you money. So anytime there's increase, there's a spike in the fuel levels, it affects local production. And that's why for some time now, when we had stability in all this, then you saw the macro indicators being very good. And I think we commend government for being able to stabilize the system. Even now that we are having challenges in the global world, you could see that there's a high level of resilience. So it's not the pass-through effect, it's not so much. We are managing it, but there's a limit to which the system can absorb it. If it goes beyond a certain level, then you can be sure that it will translate into higher cost of production. And then the
manufacturing firms looking at this fuel cost will pass on the cost to consumers in terms of pricing as well.
But this is always a challenge. Passing on the cost, I always argue that it's not the same as, I mean, it's not that simple. Because sometimes when you pass on the cost, to me, your consumers cannot take it. If you don't take it, you don't have a market. If you don't have a market, you are not in business. So it's not that easy to pass on. But if they don't have a choice, they must survive. And the survival requires that you pass on the cost to your consumers in order to be able to survive.
I mean, as you try and wrap up on this discussion, again, is government getting it right in terms of its policy initiative for the sector? First, we had one district, one factory. Now we have 24-hour economy. I mean, if there are deep-rooted problems in manufacturing space, I'm saying that address that first before trying to push anyone to do a 24-hour economy. If things are good, nobody will tell that manufacturing firm in Tema that I need to do a 24-hour cycle, I need to set the market 24 hours. What do you make of these policy proposals towards the sector, and sometimes whether it is more of a deeper consultation with your members or government want to see doing something else? 24-hour economy, sign up will give you incentives. People are struggling to get the enforcement for existing incentives.
For me, I don't bother so much about the cliches you create. Whether it's 24, 1D, 1F, that's not really, for me, the issue. It is more of what you do within those policies. You can come out with any policy, but then when you develop the policy, what has gone into the policy development? How consultative nature was it? What are the key policies or activities within the policy that you are trying to implement to change the status quo? I think that is what is more important. And I think the 24-hour economy, initially, it wasn't clear, and we all talked about it.
I know you're engaging government on that. What progress have you made on that?
Well, I think we are making good progress because now it's becoming clearer. Government is defining. You see, when you hear a cliche, when you hear a mention of something like that, sometimes the expectation is that overnight things will change and everything will be 24-hour economy. It doesn't happen like that. The same thing I said when we had the 1D, 1F. So suddenly you think that every district is going to have an industry. Government has mentioned it. It's an intention. It's a vision. How do we work towards it? The same thing applies to the 24-hour economy. So I'm not expecting that overnight things will change like that. But then we need to define the specific activities and policies and programs we are going to do to make that happen. And gradually they are coming to that point where now they've launched a blueprint, and then in it, there are a lot of interesting ideas. If you're able to implement it to the latter, I'm sure it will help change a lot of things. So for me, I embrace it, just as we embrace the 1D and AGI embraces the 24-hour economy. And we are working with government, we are working with the 24-hour economy secretariat to implement some of the things they said they will implement. If you're able to do it, it will be a game changer.
As you wrap up on this discussion, what is your policy brief or document brief if the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Trade, Agribusiness is watching us? That what is AGI's position to them, looking at all these current problems, as you try and wrap up on this, Professor?
So the basic fact is that let's appreciate that manufacturing can be a major driver of sustainable growth. We are achieving good improvement in the macroeconomic environment, but to what extent can that be sustained? If you want to sustain it, let's look at manufacturing. Manufacturing wouldn't stand alone, manufacturing and agriculture, so that effective manufacturing gets a feeding from the agricultural sector, so that the value chain works. If you get agriculture on producing on a commercial basis, sustainable basis, then they can feed industry. Industry would then thrive, expand, and then increase their output, become more competitive, and export. So if you look at agriculture, manufacturing, and exports, you put it together, that is the blueprint. And then all the other ancillaries that will work, the financial sector will come in, the electricity will come in, the business development services will come in. If you put it all together, then you can have a thriving manufacturing on a sustainable basis. That would be my prognosis. I think that if we really want to support manufacturing, there are incentives, there are policies, there are so many things we can do to improve that, and we should work at it. I think a lot of it has been recognized in the 24-hour economy. But the challenge is, how do we implement it? Are they getting the right resources? Are they getting the right partners? If we work at it that way, and the whole government psyche and everybody in the nation says, this is the direction we are going. And me and you sitting here, we decided to also patronize the goods that we are producing in Ghana. We are creating market so that all of us will contribute to the idea of bringing industries up to employ our people.
Seth Twum Akwaboah, I really appreciate your time. So I know there were other indeed very important commitments, but when we called upon you, make it. This has been PM Express Business News. As you look at the state of Ghana's industry, I think you've been educated. I have been educated as well. I know the debate will still go on in your offices about what best can we do to support our local manufacturing firms and industries, and also ensure that we have a favorable tax system. This SPM Express Business Edition. My name is George Yaffe. Have a great day.